Okay, thank you. So, first of all, I want to thank the organizers for giving me the opportunity to present this talk, which has been done in collaboration with Christophe Texier in Orsay and Pierre Delplace with my student. So, the motivation comes back to this problem of persistent current. And so, as we have seen this morning from Joe Imrie's talk, this persistent current is a very simple quantity. It's a derivative, the sensitivity of the energy or free energy with respect to the magnetic flux, and it's a property of this isolated ring. Now the question is, what is the sensitivity, what is the dependence of energy with respect to flux? And to have a finite result, actually, you need quantum mechanics. So what you need is to have your system, the perimeter, to be smaller than some phase current length, below which you can do quantum mechanics. Moreover, most of the time, these rings are metallic rings or even semiconducting rings, but they are disordered. So the length is larger than some elastic mean free path, which means that we are dealing with some intermediate regime, mesoscopic regime, in which we can do quantum mechanics, but in which we have disorder. So we have to deal with disorder and do some quantum mechanics of a disordered system. My interest was to see what happens to this persistent current, which actually is not really a property of the isolated ring. You still have a persistent current if you connect rings, but now the question is what happens to this persistent current? Of course, the answer to this question amounts to understand how the loops, the current loops conspire between different rings, okay? And basically, the physics of persistent current goes continuously from this isolated ring to actually a two-dimensional magnetism of two-dimensional metals. So basically, in between, we have the same physics, but of course, we have a different structure of the diffusive trajectories. So the point that I want to address is what can we say about the Aronoff-Bohm flux dependence of persistent current and also of other mesoscopic quantities when we change the geometry of these networks. Okay? So the outline is the following. I want to see how these mesoscopic quantities, which I'm going to introduce, evolve from this geometry, or, for example, these two geometries where the rings are close to each other or far from each other. So in order to answer this question, since we are dealing with disordered system, I will relate these physical quantities to the solution of a diffusion equation. And the question is how to solve this diffusion equation on any network with any Aronoff-Bohm fluxes in the different rings. Okay? This will give us a solution about physical quantities and also some information about the winding properties around these different loops. And the tool that I'm going to use to answer these questions is what is called the spectral determinant, which contains the basic information about diffusion in these different geometries. So first, let me remind you very briefly that different mesoscopic quantities are all related to a single quantity, which is this P of t here, which is a probability to return to the origin for a diffusive particle. Okay? So Joe Imrie told us this morning that the persistent current depends on some parameter which depend on the interaction, which may be modulated by magnetic impurities and so on. And it depends also on this return probability, like other mesoscopic quantities. So persistent current is an equilibrium property, but other out of equilibrium properties like conductivity, weak localization correction, for example, and I will talk about this quantity, which actually is the simplest one. We have seen from Sasha Mirlin's talk that the weak localization correction is a correction to classical transport in which you have the conductance is the probability to cross the system from one end to another, and to this classical probability, you may have correction which amount to couple one trajectory and the time reverse trajectory. So, of course, these corrections are related to the statistics, the distribution of these trajectories, which is nothing but the return probability in a diffusive system. And we'll see that this return probability is modulated by the magnetic flux. This is a phase-sensitive quantity, so it has to be cut at some time scale. And this time scale is a phase current time, which is limited by interaction with external degrees of freedom, phonons, magnetic impurities, or other electrons themselves. And here, for me, it's just a parameter. So what you have to remember from these quantities here is that all quantities are encoded in this time integral of the return probability, so the Laplace transform of the return probability. And this gamma, the Laplace parameter, is just the inverse of the phase current time. So basically, what I would like to do, okay, so for example, the weak localization correction is nothing but the Laplace transform of the return probability. And most of all, I am concerned with the harmonic dependence, the harmonic of the flux dependence of this quantity. So I am interested in the Laplace transform and Fourier transform of the time-dependent return probability. So what is this return probability? So it's a solution of the diffusion equation, but we know that diffusion equation is a classical equation because, of course, the probability to diffuse in the system is a classical quantity because basically a probability is a sum of intensities. It's an intensity. But you know that we have seen from previous talks that it has a quantum interference component because you can pair time reverse trajectories. And these time reverse trajectories, if you have a loop, they accumulate opposite Aronoff-Bohm fluxes. Okay? So that's why this component here to the return probability, which in zero flux double the return probability, this component here oscillates with the flux, but with a period h over 2e instead of h over e, and this will be the case for any disordered average quantity, which can be described with the diffusion equation. So this quantity is solution of a diffusion equation, but with an effective charge, which is 2e. So now we want to solve this diffusion equation. So I start with a very simple example, the case of the isolated ring. We know this return probability. You know this is the probability to wind n times around the loop after time t. It's a Gaussian process. So the Laplace transform is this celebrated Altshuler-Aronoff and Spivak dependence for the weak localization correction. And now the question that I want to ask is, what can we say for the same quantity in all these geometries? Okay? Now, how are we going to describe this time-integrated return probability? So the point is to solve diffusion equation on these networks and to get the useful information. And the useful information is actually encoded in one quantity, which I call the spectral determinant. So as I said, the physical quantities are the time-integrated return probability. So this return probability can be written as a sum of exponentials, where here the EI are nothing but the eigenvalues of the diffusion equation. For example, in free space, it's just dq squared. Okay? So the Laplace transform of this quantity is the sum of the inverse of the eigenvalues, and the sum of the inverse is the logarithmic derivative of a product. Okay? So this product here is a product of the eigenvalues, so it's called a spectral determinant. And it turns out that on a network, this quantity here is quite easy to calculate. The spectral determinant on a network, if I consider any network made of n nodes, and NB bonds, but let's say n nodes, all the information, the useful information, is encoded in an n by n matrix whose diagonal elements are basically the length of the bonds connected to a given node, and the off-diagonal terms relate one node to another, and they contain the Aronoff-Bohm phase. Okay? So from this matrix, actually from the determinant of this matrix, the determinant of this matrix is nothing but this spectral determinant from which I can get all physical quantities. So if you give me a given network, if you give me the length, the Aronoff-Bohm fluxes, and so on, the phase current length, we can get immediately these physical quantities. And this matrix here, maybe some people know that it has the same structure that the matrix which was introduced to describe critical temperature of superconducting networks. by Alexander and De Gennes. In that case, the equation that you had to solve was Ginzburg-Landau equation. You can do the same also if you want to solve Schrödinger equation on a graph, which is also a second-order differential equation. All these equations have obviously the same structure. So how do we get this structure here? Nothing but solving diffusion equation on each bond, you know, and right current conservation at the nodes. So now once we have this spectral determinant, we can, by the logarithmic derivative, get the flux-dependent time-integrated return probability after a time tau phi, 1 over gamma. By inverse Laplace transform, we know the time-dependent, flux-dependent return probability. And by Fourier transform, we know here the the Fourier transform, which is directly related to physical quantities like weak localization or persistent current. And if we want to get some information about more, let's say, mathematical structure, we may be interested in the structure of the winding properties around the different loops. So now what I'm going to do is to show you a few simple examples. The first example is that starting with this spectral determinant, I want to compare let's say, the persistent current or the weak localization correction or any of these mesoscopic quantities, compare what we have for the isolated ring and for connected rings. I can do it in a very simple, limit here. I just restrict myself to this limit. From the expansion of the logarithm of this spectral determinant, we find that when we connect the ring to some wire, or if you connect the ring to each other, there is a reduction by a factor which is just a geometrical factor, which is the product of the 2 over z, where z is a coordination number of all these nodes. Okay? So I'm not talking about the absolute value of the persistent current, but if I know the value of the persistent current for the isolated loop, I can deduce the relative values in different networks. Okay? So they are simple geometric factors. And for example, the message is that for connected structure, here, you have a persistent current for connected rings. And actually, this was observed in a few years ago, where these people here, Sami Nadeiyar and co-workers, measured the persistent current of this chain of rings, and they found a finite persistent current, which is only slightly reduced compared to the persistent current of isolated rings. So now I want to show you a few examples to show you how it works, how from this spectral determinant we get the physical quantity. So I start with the isolated ring. The spectral determinant, as we have seen before, here I have my n by n matrix as just dimension 1, so it depends on the length of the cutoff, the phase current length, and of course of the dimensionless flux. And from the logarithmic derivative, I get the weak localization correction and the harmonics of this weak localization correction, which are the Altshuler-Aronoff and Spivak oscillation. Now we can modify. First exercise is to connect the ring to arms. And now the structure is still simple, so this is the expression here. So this is still the expression. And it has the same structure, actually, as for the isolated ring, except that here you have some effective length, which depends on the bare length and on L phi. So then we can consider different regime where L phi is small, which means that the ring is weakly coherent. So in this case, we find the reduction of this weak localization by the factor 2/3 that I showed you previously. And maybe more interesting is the limit where L phi is much larger than L, which means that you stay current on many windings. You know, the ring is completely current, so the electron have time to wind along the ring many times. And in this case, the result that we find is that instead of having an exponential decay with the perimeter of the ring, we have a decay with the square root of the perimeter of the ring. You know, here this result is quite natural, I would say. This means that you can wind a number which is L phi over L. Okay? And here you can wind a number which is L phi square over L. So which means that the time dependence of this return probability has been modified. So to understand this, we can now inverse Laplace transform. So the case of the isolated ring, as I said before, is quite known. We have this Gaussian accumulation of winding number, and the typical winding number scales diffusively like the square root of time. But now when you have the connection to the arms here, which has to be supposed very long, so you have this new dependence here. So if I inverse Laplace transform, this means that in time representation, I'm considering very long time which are much longer than the Thouless time, which is the typical time to wind once around the ring. So I am considering very long trajectories. And you see that in this case, the probability is not Gaussian anymore, and the typical winding number varies very slowly with time, because most of the time the electrons are going to spend their time in the arms. So the diffusion along the ring is now subdiffusive. Okay? So, and of course, these different time dependence here are related to this different length dependence of the exponential. Now, we can, let me come back here. Of course, this problem here is the same as this problem here, where we would have very long arms between the attached ring. And now we may ask the opposite question. What happens if the rings are very close to each other? If we are in this situation. Now the electron is going to wind in one ring, and then it goes to the other one, and it always accumulates Aronoff-Bohm flux. Okay, so now the distribution of winding is different from the previous case. So same recipe, we calculate the spectral determinant, which I do not detail here, logarithmic derivative, and we get this Laplace transform, inverse Laplace transform, and you see that this quantity here now depends exponentially like L over L phi, which means that, again, we have a Gaussian accumulation of flux, which means that the typical winding number scales like square root of time. And actually, this function is about the same as for the diffusion on a cylinder. It's about the same, but here you have factor 2, 8 instead of 4. And actually, this factor 2 is quite easy to understand, because you may describe this array of rings. You can fold them, okay, like pancakes. And if you fold them like pancakes, you make a cylinder, but the rings are attached on alternative sides, okay? So you can draw this picture here. You can think of this array of rings like folded rings, which are attached on only one side, while on the cylinder, the rings are attached on both sides. Okay? So this is the origin of this factor 2. So last exercise, now the case of the square lattice. Now the calculation of the spectral determinant, as I said, it's an eigenvalue problem, and we know that the eigenvalue problem for the square lattice in the magnetic field is the Hofstadter spectrum. So you have to find the eigenvalues of the diffusion equation, which are the eigenvalues of the Hofstadter spectrum. And actually, the structure of the Hofstadter spectrum is quite complex, but the quantity of interest, which is the sum of the inverse of eigenvalues, is actually a boring function. Actually, it's a continuous function. So we can calculate this numerically, okay? So we get the oscillations of weak localization correction, for example. And from inverse Laplace transform, we should be able to get the time dependence of return probability. Actually, it's not easy to do it in this way. Here we have done the opposite, because we know the large time behavior, because for a very long time you can forget the discrete character of the lattice. You can consider that you have a two-dimensional system, and we know that for a large time this probability is given by Levy's law, probability of two-dimensional diffusion on the plane. And from this Levy law, by Laplace transform, we can get this dependence here. So on the next slide, what I am going to show you is this the Fourier component of this flux dependent, which are indeed well described by this scaling function here. So these are the Fourier components here, and if I scale n as a function of L phi divided by square root of n, I get this universal behavior. So to conclude, we have draw a kind of dictionary of different for different networks, where we have calculated the Fourier decomposition of the time dependence of the return probability. And from this Laplace transform, we get physical quantities, for example, weak localization correction or persistent current. And actually, if we consider all these geometries, these quantities are characterized by two numbers. One is alpha, which tells me how I wind around the loop. Okay? So is it diffusive, subdiffusive, or more than diffusive? And D is the dimension of the space which is attached to the loop. Okay? So we have this different situation here. So we have kind of universal behavior here. This function here, we have calculated them for these different networks. To conclude, I would say that the most, maybe the most spectacular difference is between this case and this case. So if you consider this linear chain of ring, or this linear chain of attached ring, so from I told you here, the dependence of, let's say, weak localization correction with the length, here it is a Bessel function. It's an exponential decay of n L over L phi, while here it's an exponential decay of the square root. So for a given L dependence of L phi as a function of temperature, we expect for these two cases different manifestation of this different winding should be a different temperature dependence of the physical quantities. And I think that I have to stop here. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. One question? Oh, okay.
You had this table of various values of alpha. Is there a way to engineer a network that will have a desired alpha?
Maybe we had no time yet to play with this, so we just play with a few cases. Okay. So I don't know. Of course, then you can think about self-similar networks and things like this. Yeah, probably networks in which you have, let's say, fractal dimensions for diffusion.
Thank you very much.